Now. And so now we're live.
I guess we're live.
We are.
We are live and ready to go. Welcome, everyone, to the Ryan Ripken Show, episode 1. And probably got a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions for myself, and we'll get into that. I'm here with my host, Brad Smith. He's the guy that makes everything work. He's got the headphones on, so I can kind of keep my hands. I talk with my hands a lot. I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll figure that part out. But a little rundown of what we're doing tonight. We're going to talk about baseball, the Orioles, what's kind of transpired this last week, Brad, and then down on the farm.
Yep.
A little bit we've seen, and I think that we just don't talk about that enough. So for people that want to know a little bit more about the Orioles, I got to say I do know a little bit about some of these guys and what's going on, to say the least. But big things with Jordan Westburg here. The Reds came out of Baltimore with the series win. We'll touch on that. Brad's got some stats of the week. You got them fired up and ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we got that. And then Ripken's rundown. We're going to run through Major League Baseball for this week around that we thought was really interesting, that we hope will find interesting for you all. And then probably the question, what are we doing here? And why are we here? Why do I have all these lights on, colorful lights, I think, in the background? Yeah. And then after we explain that, we're going to have some general sports segments, kind of touch and go with that. And then we're going to have a live Q&A for whatever other questions that we didn't get to on my Twitter right now at Ryan Ripken. If you guys have any questions, I just put out another tweet. Feel free to just put them there, or really, if you're on this live stream, which we hope you are, put them right in the chat. We'll get to them at the end, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll get on out of here.
Whew. I do want to emphasize it's an AMA type of Q&A. Apparently somebody already asked Ryan about his eyeballs.
AMA, what?
They asked me anything.
Ask me anything? Oh, yeah. Someone did ask me about the eyes. Yeah. Is that really a well, I guess it is a noticeable trait. But to answer that, no, I don't stare at my eyes on a consistent basis.
That was one of the questions, yeah.
That was one of the questions, but it does not. It can be about anything. We have some really colorful ones, but we also have ones that are obviously catered to the Baltimore Orioles. But now I'm taking a deep breath. How are we feeling so far? Is that okay?
Yeah. Feel good. You're doing a good job.
Ah, man. You know, I don't know what it is. I feel like you've done TV, done radio.
Yeah, like you're no stranger to a live stream. And then you told me like just a few minutes before we went live that you got a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the jitters. You never get on here and can explain what you're trying to do, and we still haven't yet. But But I mean, it's the beauty of it, and it's about trying something different. I tell people a lot, if you want to try and go out there and do something, nothing should stop you. Yeah. And this is why we have a few different ideas. But enough of that. I think a big thing that people want to talk about, let's jump right into the Orioles.
Yeah.
First and foremost, let's go to the series with the Reds first, because that is fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah. Last night was a crazy game.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
What, 7 runs in the first inning?
In the first 2 innings, it was 6-4.
Yeah. And in the first inning, if I'm not mistaken, because I was finishing up at Pickles for the radio show for 105.7, and then I was trying to wrap things up, and I heard all of the commotion after Gunnar hit his triple. Then Gunnar got thrown out, or Gunnar was safe at home, then reversed it, would have been 5-3 Orioles. But after 2 rain delay games, you then have one of the longest games of the night, but it's just because it turned into a slugfest.
Yeah.
So talk to me on your level with this team. What was something that stood out to you yesterday in the game?
It was honestly, to me, it was just the way that it all shook out. I thought for sure the game was over, get to the end of the game, and then it ends up going to extra innings. And then they put a before spot in the top of the 10th. And it was just kind of like, well, that's just it. But it was just crazy that there was nothing but boring baseball in the middle of it. And then it ended in the same fashion that it started.
I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? And for some that are saying about this Reds team and the Orioles losing the series and they got to fix a lot, you know, I'm not on that bandwagon of saying we got to fix a lot. If I'm going to be completely honest, these two teams, for those that didn't know, the Reds and the Orioles lead Major League Baseball in the most comeback wins in the entire league.
Yeah.
So that means they're not afraid to fall behind and they're not afraid to claw their way back. And I told you this off before we started. The Reds playing some really good baseball. In their last 17 games, they've won 14 of them. 1-4. And you know the 3 losses? I already told you this, but for everyone out there, They've lost 3 games. They lost to the Baltimore Orioles, the second best team in the American League. Oh, and then, by the way, they lost to the Atlanta Braves, the best team in the National League, who
Right.
to me is the best team in all of baseball right now. We can dive more into that. But I think where I saw something get mentioned about Keegan Aiken coming in at the end of the game after Batista mowed down the guys and got out of the 9th. I understand people's frustrations, but I have a different opinion. But I'm going to give you the floor on that. If you were watching that, were you upset with what was going on with the decision making, or is that something that maybe I can elaborate more on as we get into this conversation?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much that I can give. I actually had a question for you, not necessarily related to the game itself, but just a broader question of who's more prepared for a World Series right now? Like, would it be the Reds or would it be the Orioles at this point?
Well,
Because you had mentioned about there's a lot of work to do, or a lot of people are saying there's a lot of work to do. So like, who's actually more prepared for a championship right now? Is it the Orioles that are more poised, or is the Reds, considering they just played each other?
Well, Brad, I'd love to answer that question. So I'll answer that, and then because I've had a lot of questions or things being brought up with Keegan Aiken coming in at the end of the game, so I'll get to that next. But to your point, the Reds are kind of like what the Orioles were last year, in the sense that they were an exciting team, but they're doing it a little bit earlier, because last year, the Orioles, when Adley Rutschman came up, the team made a swing, but it still was a little bit later in the season where this swing started to jump, and they were going, well, wait a minute, the Orioles are in the hunt, but they're not, one of the main dogs. Right now, the Reds are the main dogs in the NL Central right now. They lead it.
Yeah.
So what that means for this young team, you can really have that excitement. But long-term, to answer your question, I think the Orioles are the better suited team right now. They have more experience. I think their roster construction is overall better. And that's not to say that the Reds, when you look at TJ Friedel, who leads off for them, you have Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, 3 hitters on their team that are young studs, and then Andrew Abbott, who's off to a great start, and he shut down the Orioles in game 2. So they have some great pieces, but if you're looking at the Orioles landscape of what they have, I just trust what they're doing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, we look at the Orioles right now. They, as of June 25th, which was last Sunday, they had 47 wins. In 2018, they had 47 wins the entire season, which is an incredible turnaround. But I agree. Like, I think the Reds just don't have all of the pieces there, but I think that they could. Probably not this year. And I wouldn't even say that the Orioles are necessarily ready for a championship. I think that it's possible that they'll make it. But I think that there's like one starter or one really solid starter away from a championship. But I just thought it was a fun question between the two of the teams right now. Who's more ready? But I would agree. Like, and you look at the farm system, and it's just absolutely insane.
It's loaded. And the thing is, there's make no mistake, the Reds and the Orioles are the 2 most electrifying teams. Like, are 2 of the most. Let me rephrase that. 2 of the most electrifying teams.
We'll get in Shohei in a second.
Yeah, I mean, goodness. Well, that guy, he's a team in himself, and that's just, my word. If you guys don't watch Shohei Ohtani, I don't know what to tell you.
It's must-see TV.
Yeah. So, but my point with where these teams are going or what can happen, or let me back up here. It's not going to really matter at this point right now, because the way that the playoff construction has changed. And by the way, we know the All-Star game selections are coming out here. The starters, we're going to jump into that later on. Make a notice, see if all the people that voted for Adley, if it comes true or not. We'll see what happens, but we'll touch in as we figure out as it goes throughout the show. But anyway, you got to be playing your best ball towards the end of the season. You got to be in the dance. And because the way everything's constructed nowadays, the Padres and the Phillies last year, 2 of the wild card teams meet in the National League NLCS, right? So you just need to be feeling good at the right moment. And veteran leadership matters. Adam Frazier came up big. And even though Jordan Westberg, who we're going to jump in here in a second, Frazier, a guy like Kyle Gibson that didn't have his best stuff, they bring stuff to a team that I can't begin to tell you. You can't quantify that. And I think that's something that needs to be said with this Reds teams. They have Joey Votto, but they still are going to be lacking in some areas because they just have so much youth. And only youth can take you so far.
Right.
And speaking of youth, though, Jordan Westberg.
Yes.
Pretty good. Pretty good debut, to say the least. How about his boys behind home plate?
Ridiculous, bro. Ridiculous.
So would you, hypothetically, if that was me in the situation, would you be in there behind, cheering me on in the rain?
With a bat that you're about ready to step on? Is that what we're talking about?
No. What?
Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah.
With Jordan Westbrook, just his buddies are behind home plate. It is pouring down rain.
I was distracted.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you're trying to make the show work, so I don't have to. So I'm not messing up my hair right now, to be honest. And by the way, if that's a question, do the Ripkens have bad genetics with their hair? The answer is an emphatic yes. If you go and look at the lineage, it's not very good.
I will say that your head is not as big though. So you got that going for you.
That's where I have a friendship. But back to Westberg, you can go back and watch his friends behind home plate cheer him on.
Yes,
it is absolutely electric to see guys out like that just supporting their friend. But Westberg was a guy that everyone's been clamoring for weeks, months.
Right.
He finally gets his chance, debuts, and really, I mean, did he do anything wrong?
No, I mean, it was just a shame that it was just like you had this rain delay, and you kind of wondered if that was going to play a factor. I think it actually played a factor in the favor of the Reds at some point. But I think just Westberg's outing, I don't know if you could have asked for a better, unless he hit a home run, which we've seen, plenty of rookies do, right? But like just to be out there and have a solid game, when you had a player that was so hyped up. I mean, I was just looking at the minor league stats. Batted 295 in 67 games, 18 homers, 54 RBIs. Like everybody was clamoring for this guy and thought that he was going to be an instant game changer. And I guess in certain ways he was that night.
Oh, he was. He did everything that you would want to see in a ball player. You saw him make a great play. Yep. You saw him work a competitive, tough at bat. That's what they call a pro at bat right there. It's a big league at bat.
Yeah.
Going 0-2 to 3-2 to a walk. That's some good stuff. Gets his first RBI, gets his first hit. You knock it out of the way. But I think something that I just worry with guys is that we have an expectation for athletes, for anybody out there, that you're going to come up there and you're just going to bang. You're going to be this electrifying player. And one example that came to my mind was the Mariners were just in town. And there's an outfielder named Jared Kelenic. And if you guys don't know about him, he was one of the top prospects for the Mariners when he made his debut. Well, if you look at some of his numbers of what happened, he got off to a really rough start. And I'm not saying about a rough start of maybe 50 at-bats, 100 at-bats. We're talking over a year and a half, 2-year span where he's almost up to 400, 500 at-bats.
Right.
And he's hitting well below 200. So that's my only concern with Westberg, with people. He's off to a great start. He's done everything right. But if we're going to expect him to come up and hit 18 to 20 home runs the rest of the season, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to downplay the stats that he had in the minors, but I think that it's just a whole different game. And not that I would know, but like you just see it as a spectator, how much more difficult it is in the bigs versus, being in the minors. And you see guys like this all the time just light it up. And all of a sudden it's like, well, now people have tape on you. Now they figured you out. Now they have way better scouting. And so I think that we'll just have to wait and see. You have like these crazy stats, even from rookies that come up and they have like a ridiculous rookie year and then you never hear from them again. It's because they start getting figured out. And so I don't want to like downplay Westberg. I just think that temper expectations is probably the better way to go about it.
You got to. I think we just expect. I mean, Adley Rutschman, love the town.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
And it's not to say that he didn't show out, but I think that everybody just thought he was just going to be this superstar, and he's a solid player. But I wouldn't say he's this superstar that everybody was playing him out to be last year.
Well, and the thing is, yes, if you look at the record, Adley, talking about a guy that his numbers are not going to reflect what he's impacted for the team because the culture changed when he came to Baltimore. It's like, bam, whammy, he's here.
Yes,
this team's different.
Correct.
But what I'm talking about, because right now the All-Star game selections and who knows as we're diving in to see if he's selected as the All-Star game starting catcher. Personally, hate to be that guy. I don't think he's going to be.
Yeah.
Because the starting catcher for the Rangers, Jonah Heim, has got him beat in almost every offensive category,
Right.
except in walks. Adley just leads all catchers in walks because he's probably got like 25 vision, like 20. It's 2010's good.
So
I had that.
2020's, I think, perfect vision. 2020.
I think 2020 is perfect, but isn't 2010 even better?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think he probably has 25 because that's how it feels when you keep having. I had 2010, by the way. Didn't help me enough to get to where I wanted to go, but I still stayed around for a while.
Fun fact: Brad is blind in his left eye.
Really?
Yeah, legally blind. Yeah.
Legally blind. Okay, so we're one of these days when we set things up more, we're going to actually get a scale to really test our vision. But
I could still probably kick your ass in ping pong.
Oh yeah. I don't know if everyone can see that it's dark lighting back there. A lot of room for activities, a lot of lights.
This is a spot for sure.
This is the spot that we're going to continue to dive into. But to finish with all of it,
yeah,
Adley's not had his best offensive month. He's hitting 210, I believe, to finish out this month, or if playing tomorrow. So OBP, something he is like, but I think the point is he's still a generational talent. He's still a great player. Gunnar Henderson was not off to a great start.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, he's a 21, 22-year-old kid. Actually, I believe it's Gunnar Henderson's birthday today. And I'm going to check on that to make sure. And if that's the case, shout out Gunnar. Go get him a cake.
Speaking of shout out, I want to shout out to 9 people. We got 9 people watching right now.
And
what do we say?
Hell yeah. Well, I say thank you for the start of it because we didn't know where this would go.
Yeah.
And honestly, I told him if we got above 3, I would be pretty happy.
I see my girl, Coach Tamp, tuning in. I appreciate you, Tamp. She's a strength and conditioning coach at Baylor.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're just trying to bring people together. We appreciate the time. It's going to take time for us to figure out how we want to make this all work. But to close out with the Reds series, because we were dancing around, Adley, your best players, Adley, Gunnar, they're going to have their struggles. We're going to see it. You got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And no one's perfect. So when we're talking about Jordan Westbrook coming up and any other player that comes up after, it does not mean it's always going to guarantee success. Now, on the other flip side, a lot of these Reds young players have come up and had instant success, and they could have some failures down the stretch. But for right now, you got to be happy for the Reds because now they're back in the race. And a fan base, and the Orioles, you guys can relate to this fan base, it's been a rough few years.
Oh, my God.
And
bro, as a fan, it's been a rough 40. We had a couple bright spots, but we have, and we're going to start getting into the conversation of, Indians fans, or I'm sorry, Guardians fans.
Yeah, you watch your mouth.
I know, God. But the drought, the championship drought. I feel like we're getting there. We're getting into that conversation.
It is. I mean, it's been 40 years, and not only just 40 years of not winning a World Series, being back to the World Series, just actually being in the Fall Classic, in the dance, exactly. But so for people that, if you got frustrated with the Reds coming in here, they're playing good baseball. Be excited for their fan base. They're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Before we move on to other parts of the Orioles, and we want to get into the stats and the rundowns, I want to mention one play I thought was really cool. And actually, you mentioned this, so why don't you take it away? It involved the Mariners and the Orioles past weekend.
Remind me of Team Me Up. Remind me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anthony Santander,
yes,
in the outfield. Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, one of the most talented players out there in Major League Baseball, smacks one deep to right.
Yes, Santander robs a home run.
Tony Taters, and then what's Tony Taters do?
Hits a home run.
That was pretty amazing.
It's the beauty of baseball, man. Like, there's just things that are so unscripted that end up becoming like movie type moments, and that was one of them.
Oh yeah. And it's funny when things like that, and I'll flash back into the Red Series real quick, because the one thing I didn't touch on with Keegan Aiken, one moment can change an entire outing. Maybe no one thinks about this.
Yeah.
Will Benson hit a triple to start off the 10th with the guy on second base. Tony can make some great plays. It looked like on that one, he might have not taken the best angle on the ball, and it was a rope. The hardest ones to read are those line drives that have backspin because you don't know what you're going to do. Yeah. You hope to get a good read on it, but if you make one step wrong in, back, whatever it may be, you might miss an opportunity of making the catch, and you still almost made the catch. It was that close.
Yeah.
What happened? If he makes that catch, there's one out, and the whole perception is different. That ball drops, guys on third base. What happens next? Whammy 2-run homer, and the team is deflated.
Yeah.
Happens. But I want people to understand that's the essence of baseball. You could talk about whether or not he should be in or not. And the bullpen, by the way, was drained. Guys were tired. They were gassed from the past few days. The bullpen, that was what they had to do. And I'd rather not have Felix Bautista going out there throwing multiple innings right now. You want to keep your big dog healthy because I don't know if anyone's noticed. He's throwing 103 right down the middle. Say, hit it. Good luck.
Right.
And no one is doing a dang thing. And there's actually right there the home run robbed by Tony Taters. That oh wow, I didn't even realize that it was a plus 540 to hit a homer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal.
That sucks.
I don't bet on baseball, but if I was a betting man and that happened, I might throw this chair through the window.
Oh my God. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. So moving on, I wanted to get into the Jackson Holiday. So Jackson Holiday is now the top prospect.
Number one, the Orioles.
Not just for the Orioles, but for the entire MLB.
Third straight year
of
the Orioles having the number one overall prospect.
Just kind of goes and speaks to the how crazy powerful the farm system is. And, you know, given
big leagues for years, get really high picks, really talented players.
Pick the right players, though.
But so that's the point. I laugh at it because it is true. If you're a bad team and you're going to pick that high, there's a lot of good players at the top of the draft. But having said that, you want to pick them right.
Right.
And the Orioles picked Adley right. Obviously, changed the culture. Gunnar Henderson was a second-round pick that year, I believe, in Adley's draft. So Michael Elias's first two picks were Adley and Gunnar. Pretty good. I'd match it up against any GM right now in Major League Baseball. And then Jackson Holiday, another number one overall pick. Heston Kjerstad was the second overall pick. Now he's healthy. Guy can hit the ball to the moon and hit everything. He's the best pure left-handed hitter, in my opinion, in all of the minor leagues. Now you can quote me on that. I know Kowser's tearing it up.
Yeah.
That's how much I believe with Kjerstad. So you're right, though. You got to make the most of being up there that high.
Yeah. And speaking of Jackson Holiday, if you guys don't know, obviously the son of Matt Holliday. I wanted to ask, and I hope it's not too personal, but I wanted to ask you too, like, what kind of pressure is Jackson under, just being that, you know, your father's an all-star, you're in the same kind of boat, or you were in the same kind of boat. And like, is there that pressure on these types of players that like have fathers that were, or even grandfathers, what have you, just in that space where you have family that's been in baseball? Is there like that different pressure, or you just try to tune that out as much as you can?
Oh, there's definitely pressure. You know, his dad was one of the better players. While he was in his prime, he was one of the best players in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, if not the best player.
You know, stud, multi-time all-star. You know, a household name, and also a gigantic dude. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. But he was a force, and people remembered who he was. Yeah. So when you have that type of pressure on you, of course you're going to feel it. But I think what makes Jackson so special, it doesn't seem like things really faze him too much, because you got to have thick skin in this. And that was something for me 100%. Personally. I had a tough time. It's every time I'd walk around somewhere and someone would say something, it was never good enough, if we're going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, that's hard. And that's what Jackson is. But what I'm so impressed with him is, with being the number one overall pick, you have to be considered the Orioles thought he was the best player in the draft. That's number one. And number two, you have to be able to handle yourself and conduct yourself at an elite level.
Yeah.
And he's doing that. And that's really why he's having so much success, if we're being honest, is because his makeup and understanding is helping him with his talent. Because the hardest thing for young players is your maturity.
Yeah.
By far. And that's why when Gunnar was having his struggles, he was mature, he's handling it. But when you're still young, you're trying to figure out yourself. So it's just so encouraging for Jackson. And as far as tools wise, man, the dude's a stud.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. The only place he's going to end up going is the Baltimore.
Right.
So I'm happy for him. I really am. Hopefully get a chance to talk with him a little bit in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You never know.
Speaking of talking to other players, I saw Steve Johnson tuning in too.
Steve, well, I hope Steve is saving up. Hope you're fasting, Steve, for the next 2 weeks or whenever we are meeting next, because we had such a great conversation.
It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were right there next door.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed.
That's why I'm here. One of the reasons why I'm here is to help out with the tech.
For those that don't know, Steve and I have been talking for the longest time about going to Iron Rooster restaurant group here, chain here in Baltimore, the Baltimore region. They have restaurants in Canton, Hun Valley. I'm missing some places here down in Annapolis, McHenry Row. Anyway, Steve and I met at the Hun Valley one and ate about 8, 9, 10 roost tarts and just answered all of everyone's questions on Twitter that I had before. Plus, we talked about some great things with current players. And your guy here lost the file. And I haven't been able to sleep since. So, Steve, get ready. We're going to be back on it. Should be a lot of fun. And for those to stay tuned, because that's kind of how things are going to evolve without giving too much away. But let's keep on moving on.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's time now for Brad's stats.
Yeah, we actually covered 2 of them already. When that was Jordan Westberg and the 47 games that the Orioles have already won.
Shout out you.
Which is crazy to think about. Like 2018 was 5 years ago. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, and it was that long ago that the Orioles were that bad.
Yeah, well, I can remember I was in that organization still. So in the minors right there, you're not in the bigs, but it went from that spring training where everyone thought the Orioles were going to be still contending.
Yeah.
And boy, did they not. And then the losses happened, and we're sitting there going, what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden these trades happen, and we had an influx of prospects just be thrown into the team.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah.
It was a rough go, but a lot of great opportunities. That's how guys like Cedric Mullins got his chance again.
I mean, hey, the bright side is that we didn't have to wait another 17 years before we got back to 500. So,
yeah, I'd say if you told me 5 years from that year that the Orioles would be one of the best teams in baseball, I'd take that 11 times out of 10.
Correct. Agreed.
All right. You got another stat for me?
So getting on to the next stat, and I think that this is probably the coolest one recently. Now, there's plenty that you could cherry pick, I guess. But Aaron Hicks, the turnaround story for Aaron Hicks is pretty awesome. When he was playing for the Yankees and 76 plate attempts, he's batting 188, 263, and 261. And since coming to the Orioles, he's 72 plate attempts, 306, 403, and 581, which is pretty awesome. But I guess the key takeaway for me here is, like, obviously the regime change certainly has made a difference, but like, is that all a player needs sometimes, is just when they're in a funk, they just need to change the scenery, and then all of a sudden they can just turn it right back on?
Yeah. Simple answer. Yeah. Has anyone, I'll raise my hand, has anyone felt like when you're in a situation, things are so bad constantly over and over and over again, you feel like the ones around you might not trust you as much, or maybe it's not saying teammates in this case, but maybe colleagues, or it's other people's opinions, and you can feel that weighing down. In baseball, fan bases, and you feel that everything you're doing is being magnified. You make a mistake, it's out there, and then it keeps happening, and you keep struggling, and you get frustrated, and then sometimes you can get so lost to go, what the hell am I doing? And then all of a sudden you're so in your head that things that you've never done before in your career, you start doing. So yeah, breath of fresh air, going somewhere else, your mind just kind of opens back up. So I'm not saying for everyone, if you're having really hard problems in your job, to quit your job and the grass is greener. That's not what I'm saying. But in sports, having that fresh mind can allow you to try to find yourself. I mean, I said this before, Kyle Gibson coming from the Phillies, he even said this team brought him energy.
Yeah.
It brought some life to him.
Right.
Brought passion to him. So I think with every opportunity, there's a silver lining. This is a perfect silver lining, and it's to the Orioles' benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. I just thought that was an incredible stat. And so get used to those. We'll have more of those stats coming up in coming shows. Guys, make sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe if you're not already. We have 12 people watching, so
That's why he's here too, to remind me to do that.
the calls to action. So if you guys don't know, well, we'll get into that later up. But if you don't know anything about me, which you probably don't on this channel, you'll get to find out more in just a moment. Before we get into anything else, though, we got to get to the Rips rundown and what's going on around MLB, sir.
Well, that's a great question. So we're actually going to go back a little bit here. And I think it was something to bring up because the Angels absolutely mushed the Rockies 25-1. And everyone had a multi-hit game except one player. Do you want to guess who that one player was? He's very good.
Everybody had a hit except for this player.
Everyone had multi-hits.
Oh, multi-hits.
Except this one player.
Just because it would make total sense in that entire game. Was it Shohei Ohtani?
That is correct. So Shohei Ohtani, probably the best player in the world, gets one hit in that game. And you know the funny thing is, they outscore him 25-1 in that game. Angels lost that series to the Rockies, which is just hilarious. But it brought back memories of August 22nd, 2007. Does that make sense? I think that's the right
ring
date.
A bell for anybody.
If anyone remembers that date, well, if you don't, now you're going to remember. Rangers Orioles played in Baltimore, and we have it up right there. 30-3. Yeah. Which is still the record for most runs ever scored in a game. And there it is. That's actually, if you can scroll up real quick for a second so we can show became the first team in 110 years to score 30 runs. You know what I was thinking about this in football terms? Didn't the Ravens not score a touchdown for 4 games?
That was the year we won the Super Bowl, though.
Exactly, because the defense was electric. In baseball, you can't do that. But my point being is the Rangers put up a 30 spot. What is the most glaring thing, or what is one of the things that you remember from that game?
The fact that we were actually winning before all this happened. So the first 3 innings, we were actually winning this game. And it wasn't until after the 6th where it really got ugly.
It was 3-0 Baltimore.
Yeah. In
the 4th. And then it was a 5-3 game going into the 6th. 5-3. That to me still has to be the worst. The worst.
And of course, Daniel Cabrera is the losing pitcher of that game.
Yeah. Well, and then there was a save.
I can't believe he stayed in the league as long as he did.
Well, you know what? I tell people this. Cabrera, great stuff, actually. He had some good sing to it, but a guy, again, of putting things together.
Just no consistency.
Then consistency is king if you want to stay around. And you're right. He had some good stuff. That's what kept him around. But the consistency of it is the reason why he didn't do as well as people might have hoped.
Yeah.
But I still think he got the loss. The Rangers Littleton got the save. So if people are wondering why that happened, it's because in baseball, if you can go 3 innings in a game that is so lopsided, because you'd think a save is usually a 3 runs or less game. Felix Bautista's coming into the game. And you go, save opportunity for the Mountain.
Yeah.
Makes sense. In this case, it happened because Littleton went 3 innings. And if you go 3 innings in an MLB game to close it out, you are credited with a save. So in a 27-run deficit, Littleton walks out of there with a save. And if you just looked at those numbers and whatnot, it was just a nuts game. Is it fair to say that loss is still worse than the Angels Rockies?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. I was like, is this more embarrassing than the 30-3 loss? I think they're just equally embarrassing. I think if you had to like split hairs, then yeah, maybe the Orioles game is still.
You ever grow up playing in those games? Like just in Little League backyard?
Yeah, of course. And coaching, I was a really good coach. I was always on the other side of that, but
that's nice.
But playing, not so much.
Humble brag to you being a great coach. I have been on both sides, and let me tell you what, the losing side of it absolutely stinks.
I was about to ask that because, like, if you're on the losing side of it, especially like, let's put it this way: if it starts out that way, you just know the game's just going to continue to be a drubbing. You're just kind of like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to sit here and play through the game. But like, when it's the way that the Orioles lost that game, and there was like the last half, is like you're at least thought there was some hope in winning this game, and then it just gets taken away from you, and then you're just, I don't know, the foot just keeps on the gas, and like there's just no hope, I guess. Which I guess begs the next question to this. You know, you have the mercy rule in the Little League, and people always ask this whenever they see games like this. When will there actually be a mercy?
There will never be one. There's pride in there, and also too, it doesn't happen that often like this way. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's why there's no mercy rule, because it's professional baseball. You don't think it happens, but you do get beat down pretty good. And I remember some specifically in the minors where you're sitting there, you're already down 10 in the third,
right,
and then you're down 15, and now you're just counting on the ends. The worst part of all this is if it's a hot game, it's 98, and you're in South Carolina, North Carolina, which this occurred for me, and you're in the field for almost 3 hours and 45 minutes alone. And then you get in there and you're in your dugout for maybe 2 minutes because you go 3 up, 3 down. You want to talk about really that to me was the worst part of it. You was just like, please let this end. I remember one to finish out, actually, last story. We were getting pummeled by the high A Red Sox, Salem Red Sox. And I mean, pummeled. Last day before our All-Star break. And there was a giant rain cloud, like you could see the storm, and you could see it circling, right, and all of us were just like, please nail us, please put me out of my misery. And then the wind's howling, it's picked up, and we're like, yep, this is it, it sprinkles, goes right off, like it misses us, and then we see it like monsooning half a mile away. And then I have to go up to bat the next time up. And I was thinking, man, I was 1 for 3. I get out. I'm 1 for 4. I have to come up again. And then I hit a ball down the right field line, which was fair. The umpire called it foul. How I knew it was fair, because I was so ticked off after the game. I found the video, zoomed in on it, right on the line. Ended up striking out, finishing 1 for 5. And then I think my bat had a crack in it. So, I just made sure I got rid of it after that. But anyway, that's to that. Losing stinks, big losses like that. But the Orioles still, for fans, I'm sorry if I brought that up, but that one to me is still one that's hard to beat. Moving into the rundown, though, because there's a lot more baseball to talk about. And now we're at the halfway point.
Yep.
Luis Ariz is almost hitting 400. He's very close. And I think there's a debate of, if a guy hits 400, should he be MVP?
I don't know. Hold on. So maybe, but not in a season where Shohei Ohtani is doing what he's doing.
Well, in the American League, he's going to win it without a doubt. If Shohei Ohtani doesn't get hurt, I mean, this is the easiest MVP vote ever.
Yeah.
Ohtani wins the AL. In the NL, you got Ariz, but there's one other player that I don't think people are talking about enough. His name's Ronald Acuna Jr. And actually, if you really want to look at some of the things that he has been able to do, Ronald Acuna is not only on one of the best teams in baseball, by the way. And actually, if we're able to get one of the, if you go on MLBstats.com right now, the 4 players at the top of that list, it's Ohtani with an OPS over 1,000, and he's got 28 homers, 64 RBIs. That's ridiculous.
It is.
But then you have Ronald Acuna, who, even though Ariz is hitting 394 at the moment with a 933 OPS, Ronald Acuna Jr. is hitting 331 with 19 bombs, 51 RBIs. Oh, and by the way, he's got 36 stolen bags. Like, he's on pace to do something on another spectrum that we've never seen. He's on pace to almost get 70 bags and hit almost 40 home runs.
Right.
I mean, I know probably in your heyday you can steal some bat. No, you're not built for speed, are you?
I was not built for speed. No.
Well, too bad. Me either. Actually, I think I had like 5 stolen bases in my career. But so that's the thing, is like, when you look around the other cases in the American League, it's Ohtani's one to win. But Ariz, I want people to understand, like, hitting 400 is not an easy thing either. Like, right. I would love to see him win it. But are you kind of with me on that? Like, the name of the game is drive guys in and score, and no one's doing that better than Acuna Jr. in the NL.
When you look at these numbers, how do you dispute that? It's on base percentage is 408, average is 331, slugging percentage is 585. I mean, who's better right now?
If Arise wasn't hitting 394, Acuna Jr. would be leading all of baseball in average.
Yeah.
I mean,
Arise, that 396 is still stupid. What a stupid number.
there is some stats out there. He's had like, there was one point he's seen hundreds and hundreds of pitches, like almost 400 pitches or whatever he's seen this year. And he's only missed like 20 of them.
Jesus.
I think I've missed 20 in a span of like 3 games, maybe even 2. You have an 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 game, strike out 4 times. That number gets high very quickly.
Yeah.
That just shows how hard it is. But so I want people to understand, we're seeing some great seasons. You really need to pay attention to Ohtani. Really cherish everything we have there with him. But Acuna Jr. and Arise, 2 guys that really can continue to be incredible players. Again, there's the numbers out right there. Acuna, Freddie Freeman, also, by the way, which is a great way to segue.
Yeah. I also have news on
one.
Freddie Freeman too.
Oh, please.
Breaking news right here on the Ryan Ripken Show. Freddie Freeman is officially an All-Star.
Well, there he is. So he is the starter for the team?
Yep.
Well, there you go. That's awesome news. Congratulations to Freddie. Another reason to congratulate Freddie Freeman. Got his 2,000th hit the other week.
Yeah.
Or this past week. And I know the illustrious one is to reach 3,000, which everyone hopes that they can. And to get to that point is not easy because it takes a lot of, essentially, you got to play a lot of games. You got to stay healthy.
Yeah. And
right now, Freddie Freeman's sitting at 33. He's got over 2,000 hits. And we're going to sit here and wonder, is he going to be the next guy that's going to get it?
Yeah.
And so when we look at this list, these are the active players right now in Major League Baseball. And to be honest, I think he's got an outside shot. So you hope right now, if he plays the next 5 years.
How old is he?
He's 33. He's going to have to average some solid numbers and continue to hit at a very good clip.
Yeah.
But it's doable. When you look at the other guys on that list, Elvis Andrus, it's not going to happen.
No.
Nelson Cruz, 42 years old. Nope. Miguel Cabrera, already in the club. Andrew McCutchen had his 2,000th hit recently, but again, 36 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
The days of us seeing, curious.
Altuve, I think Altuve might do it.
So he's the next one coming to 2,000. But again, it comes back to, can you stay healthy and relevancy?
Sure.
And so the age of guys playing until they're 40 is a little bit different than what it is now.
Yeah.
Not as many are doing it as hitters. Pitchers, it's a different story.
Yeah.
You can.
Right.
Is there anyone else on this list, if you scroll down?
Yeah.
That we're going to see in this? Machado, maybe?
I think Manny could do it. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's over halfway there. And he came into the league at what, 24?
He came earlier than that. He was young. He was very young because he came right in the Orioles way in 2012, and he's about 21,
You're right.
22,
yeah, so
I believe. Or might have been 19.
That's still, yeah, you're right. So that's still a long ways off, I guess. But I think he could do it.
The crazy thing right there, Mike Trout, 31 years old. And so he only has 1,600 hits. You'd think about a 3-time, I think he's a 3-time MVP.
The quote unquote face of the MLB.
Stanley, thank you. Manny was 21. That's why we need our fact checks right there. Perfect. But that's it. So the example is right now for Manny through 9 years. So he's got a shot. It's not going to be easy.
That's if Manny chooses to play the next 9 years, right?
Sorry?
That's if he chooses to play the next 9 years.
Well, and
to your point of players, playing through 40.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's not, you see these guys, it's not always sustainable. And let's just be honest. They don't have the final say. Most players don't have the final say. You usually get told at some point, we're going to make a change and the jersey is going to be taken off your back, right. Whether it's you get released early on. And in my case, my opportunities were drying out. That happens. Or you have an illustrious career like Derek Jeter in the sense where Derek played for a long time. And even though they said, hey, you could keep playing here, they're going to have a discussion. At some point, they're going to move on.
Yeah.
So you can't. So we'll see what happens there. And it's some great magic. And I'll tell you, it's some magic that happened last night in the baseball world, but it's still controversial in the sense because it's about the individual. Pitcher Domingo Germán last night.
Yeah.
threw the 24th ever perfect game in Major League Baseball history. And the one thing that impressed me the most about the feat is that he did it in 99 pitches. You'd think usually with imperfection that you might still go over 199 pitches. So he averaged 11 pitches an inning, which is truly incredible. But I think the one thing that people are focusing on, which again, I think it's a right conversation to talk about, is Herman's had some personal issues in the past. He was suspended for domestic violence for 80 games, and he also was suspended for the sticky stuff substance. And again, you want to try to separate the player from the game, but so many times, Brad, I've had countless conversations with people about this. When players do really well, it's a great accomplishment. It's something that you value if you're a fan of the team, and you got to appreciate what they did. Having said that, when people have personal issues that really hit home with you and resonate with you personally, you might have a different indication and not feel the same way.
Right.
How are you feeling about the situation, seeing the perfect game, which again, we've only seen 24 of them in the history?
Yeah. I think for me, it's like you can appreciate the accomplishment and not have to like the guy or view him as a role model, right? Like nobody, and I know that there's always this conversation of like, well, you're put in a spot like you have a responsibility, and I absolutely agree with that. To like be just be better because of the spotlight that is on you, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we just witnessed a perfect game for the first time since 2012. So this doesn't even have to be your favorite perfect game. Like the Randy Johnson perfect game is going to be one that I remember forever till my last days. That'll be the one that I just remember. So this doesn't have to be one that has to be widely celebrated. But I mean, come on, it's a perfect game. Like you probably only see 2 or 3 of these in your entire lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, the last one was in 2012 with King Felix.
Yeah.
And so in that game, but look, it's interesting. For the longest time, this was something as an identity for myself. Was you felt like how you played on the field was how people viewed you.
Yeah.
And for me growing up, it was if I didn't play as well, I felt that people viewed me a different way as a person.
Sure.
When you play really well, people sometimes overlook the own people as, outside of the game. And I think that's something. The reality is like you really don't know these people.
Right.
You can idolize them, but you have no idea who they are on the side. And that's a continued topic. And I think that's why it's so, and I get it, it's a very sensitive issue for a lot of people, especially what he's been accused of and been a part of and had to serve his suspensions. And you want to try to separate the both. We sat down with Jonathan Ogden about it. Ogden and I talked about it, and Kyle Bowler was a guy that's reputation got dragged through Baltimore.
Yes.
And Kyle Bowler worked as hard as anybody. He just and if you watch the interview with Jonathan, he'll even say, hey, Kyle worked as hard as anybody. He just couldn't process things quickly.
Right.
And the reality of it is he didn't do anything wrong. It's just he worked his tail off. But then you have other guys that we can idolize and go out there, and they might not be the best people off the field, but they do well for your team, and they're viewed differently. That's just the reality of it. And then they're viewed differently as long as they're still producing. And as soon as the production drops, it drops with them. But
that's just part of the business.
Part of the business. But it still was a highlight of a moment in a season so far. Like I said, the game's been around for how many years? I don't even say how many years. It's been a long time before.
Over a century.
Anyone that's watching this, you haven't been alive as long as baseball's been around.
Right.
And it's gonna outlive all of us as well. So the point is, it is history. But that's kind of all I got for the Rips rundown for now. For this episode.
Did you want to talk about Shohei in this part?
You know what? I think we're good with the unicorn. I think the reality is Shohei Ohtani is the best player in the world. Period.
Yeah. I do want to ask this question. And we can table the rest of the MLB stuff. But when Shohei Ohtani is the player that you saw when you were playing Little League that just was the pitcher because he was the best player on the team and who also could hit. Like, and you know this, you're just playing ball when you're a kid. It's like you're on the team and the best player on the team is also going to be the pitcher. That's just how it is. And that's exactly what Shohei is just in the big leagues. It's just crazy to see how it looks from it because it just it's like a video game.
Yeah, but that's the crazy thing is he's not even the best on his own team. He's the best hitter in baseball.
Leads the league in home runs now, right?
Period. Yeah. It's literally, and I remember there's a video, a pitch. It might have been Freeman on the Rockies threw a two-seamer in. He's a lefty. Two-seamer in off the plate like this much, and Ohtani gets his hand in and launches it for a home run. And then you read his lips. He says some other choice words along the lines of, "How the hell did you hit that?" That's what he does. And then, by the way, here's almost 100 for you. Good luck hitting it. We might not see this ever again.
Yeah,
it's really, truly great to see.
Do you think? I know you said that we might not see this ever again, but do you think we won't see it again because that's just how players are brought up in a sense of like, well, if you can pitch, you don't need to learn how to hit? Or will there be more coaching towards players like Ohtani?
I just don't think we can't imagine that people can be like Ohtani. You hope now once you see it that there can be people that follow it, right? So in some cases, like, we'll break the.
I mean, compare it to like a Lamar Jackson situation.
That's exactly what I was about to say with Lamar. Until something happens, you're not going to consider it.
Yeah.
Because you go with what works. And then you think that, well, something's going to go wrong until the Ravens were willing to give Lamar the full chance, even though there's quarterbacks that maybe had some similar skill sets to him that were in the NFL, not to the extent of Lamar. Until the Ravens made the choice, whammy, there it is.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see more teams think about it in that way. Problem with baseball is you got to find someone who can be that dominant as a pitcher to get up to the big leagues. And then you got to find someone to dominate that much as a hitter. And that's a hard thing to do. Like Hunter Green was a player for the Reds, I believe, right now. When he was drafted, they thought he could be a two-way guy. And they said, okay, we're just going to focus more on you pitching because that's what's more advanced. So you're going to hope for this to happen. The reality is it might not.
I have to believe that at some point, and maybe I don't know where in the developmental process of like a player it starts, if it's, in Little League, if it's high school ball, if it's A ball, whatever, college, that at some point they're going to be like, you know what, we're not going to take the almost sure out anymore when it comes to like having we want the pitcher to be able to hit too. Like we need an all around guy.
Look, I mean, hey, it's great concepts. You want all around guys. It's just what we like. I don't like to get like fanboy over athletes and players. It's just I just don't know if what Ohtani does can ever be like. I'm not saying we're not going to see another player like him, but if we haven't seen someone like this, and say the biggest comparison was Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
back
but Babe Ruth wasn't even doing this stuff.
But exactly. So what I'm saying is
10 strikeouts, 2 home runs in one game is ridiculous.
Yeah, let me give you 7 on the bump, and let me hit two big balls here, and I'm gonna literally single-handedly win this game.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're gonna see that. So a lot to talk about with baseball. We could talk about this for a while.
Yeah,
but why don't we actually talk a little bit about while we're here? Before we do that, give a shout out to ASPN, Ash. They've been very supportive, Ash and Lisa, over the times. So shout out to you guys for continuing to give support to the group. As I'm trying to figure this out, you're ahead of me on how this works on YouTube, so you might have to give me some pointers.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed anybody yet at the moment here. We'll try to get in some more questions down the road. But why are we here?
So that's a good question. I feel like it's a one for you, but I'll go ahead and take the lead on it because I think, and I want to put words in your mouth, but I think why we're here is because physically, this is my studio.
Physically, it is.
And Ryan and I met at the John Ogden charity tournament, and shout out Bobby Trossett, because Bobby was the one that actually tagged me along. And then we ended up partnering up with you guys during the day. And then you ended up finding out that I am in content creation. I've actually had a YouTube channel with 50,000 subscribers for the past 7 years. And my co-host of the channel got diagnosed with brain cancer, passed away a couple months ago. And I actually have been kind of struggling on whether or not I should just keep the studio and or continue to create content. And so we ended up having that connection over golf. And I think it's kind of reignited me a little bit on actually having fun with this again and being able to riff with someone else. And it just so happens to be that I also like talking sports. So, we'll see where it goes. But I'm pretty pumped for the direction in which I think this does end up going.
Yeah. And people are going to find out more of your personality and mine as we go. It's good to give the backstory of it because hey, you want to know who are these people that are talking to?
Yeah.
The people that who have followed me or followed you so far, they have the idea. But for everyone else out there, for me, I used to play professional sports. I was a professional baseball player for 8 years, started my career at the Washington Nationals, finished with the Baltimore Orioles, retired, reaching the AAA level with the Orioles and the Norfolk Tides in 2021. And now moving into the media space, media world for myself, we talked about this now. It's, the game's changed. And what I mean by the game, it's not the sports out there, which have changed the rules, but in here, it's a space for people to want to get the information that they want, and how to get it is the big part.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the entertainment side of things. Like, people don't want corporate media anymore, and there's been some parts of corporate media that's starting to figure that out. It started with just like streaming, and you see like Amazon Prime and Apple, they're getting in on the streaming game when it comes to streaming sports in general. But I think that Disney really started to catch on when they had Pat McAfee come on ESPN a couple of times, when they started to bring on the Manning brothers to watch Monday Night Football in a way that nobody's watched Monday Night Football. And so I think that that's where everything's headed. And why not us, as far as being able to do the same thing? Maybe who knows what direction we want this to go in, but we know that we have a lot of people that we can talk to, that we can bump ideas off of, guests that we want to have on the show that I think that everybody wants to hear from on a level that isn't so manufactured. We're not going to just give softballs to everybody, easy answered questions. We want to be able to get into the nitty gritty, but also have fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, don't you want to get to know things more behind the scenes, know how actually people work, what they think? Yeah. And I mean, I haven't even fully disclosed how I am. I have my own podcast, The Off Script with Rip, where I have more of the conversations, but the side of Ryan hasn't come out more. And I think the goal is for everyone out there to give you something that you want to come back to. And we're going to add more segments and more and different aspects of the show that are going to be fun and goofy. You're going to be like, what the hell is he even talking about or doing? Like, I wanted to stand up right now for the first episode, but the pants are a little bit tight and I don't know how it would look on camera. So we're sitting down right now, but like, that's the evolution of it. But the other thing is you want content, you want something, the accessibility. Our goal is to give it to you and have you be able to reach it with ease. And that's what we're doing here. And again, we're in the Baltimore, Maryland region. I mean, we have ties to this area, and we're going to give you coverage, especially in the sports world, with this region. Yeah. Did we cover? Was that? Yeah,
I think so.
Pretty good.
Basically, we just don't want to work for the man.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think the beauty of it is we want the interactions to be what people want.
Well, and we want to build a community and bring them along.
There we go.
The journey.
The journey of the ride of whatever we're going to end up doing in this studio or other places. Because, it's a spoiler alert. This is not the only place we're going to be shooting from, even though it is nice in here. We have some ideas, but that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Please let us know. And if you can, as always, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, there it is.
Well done, Ryan.
There it is. Because that'd be the best way for you to get when we put things out, which we're going to be putting out a lot more as things are going on here moving forward.
Yep.
So having said that, I think we covered why we're here.
Yep.
We're excited about where it's going. Still don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. But what we're going for this segment to keep it very chill is just we want to do a general sports segment. And there's been kind of talking about things around the world in the sense of what's hot and what's not. So why don't I'm out of breath here, Brad. What are we starting with here?
I would like to start with this whole craziness when it came to the sports betting side of it. We'll start with that. If you guys didn't catch the news, some more sanctions were handed down to NFL players. And I think that you and I fall on different sides of this, depending on what we're talking about. But if you guys didn't catch, the big news was the left tackle, and his name just escaped me, that from the Titans that just got suspended for 6 games for just gambling in the facility. And he didn't gamble anything NFL related.
Nope.
He followed the law and the laws of Tennessee. But the fact that he actually made a bet or gambled in a Titans facility got him that 6-game suspension. And this is something that, in my opinion, I think is absolutely ridiculous. And the other crazy part is that this was over $1,000. This was $1,000 bet. I don't think it disclosed exactly what he was betting on, but you're talking about a guy who's making millions of dollars a year, bet $1,000, wasn't breaking the law and doing it. The rules are made by a company, the NFL, that has deals with these gambling companies such as DraftKings and FanDuel, makes millions of dollars off of them. And that's just the part that cracks me up. It's just like, I would understand if it was a situation in which you're betting against your own team and then you actually shave points or whatever, right? Like and it was for a ridiculous amount of money. But we're talking about the equivalent of $10 to a player. And to me, it's just like, he's not going to change the way that he plays his game over $1,000. Like, that's just not going to happen. And you go back to the Calvin Ridley, where he was suspended for an entire season over a $1,500 bet. Like, I just don't see, and maybe it's just because of the way that I think. But like, if I'm making millions of dollars a year as a professional football player, I'm not going to change the way that I play my game over a $1,500 bet on fantasy football.
Yeah, what an interesting world we're dealing with now. Because whether people love the gambling world or not, it is here and it is here to stay because people are loving to be involved. I think I get conflicted in 2 ways. One, when you have an employer and they're going to pay you a lot of money, and they set their rules, you have to try to follow them. It sounds like Titans offensive lineman, he wasn't clear on what those rules were specifically, just from doing it. But the thing that sucked for him is that, he didn't bet on games, but it was on property of the facility of which he placed the bet. Therefore, he's getting the suspension there. But there is an integrity factor because there were players like Isaiah Rodgers is one of the bigger names. Yeah. And for those, there's a Colts player and there's other players involved, but he was suspended for the season and he had $1,000 bet and he actually bet on the Colts, specifically the over under rushing yards for a specific running back for the Colts. But you got to think you got to hammer the over.
Right. You have to.
You got to hammer the over for your boys.
Yeah.
Unless you're hoping, it's going to, I don't want you to succeed because then that hurts the team. But that's where it gets challenging, at least in that component. When you start betting on games, and even if you're betting for your own guys, this is where it gets sticky because.
Well, what if it's like I said, what if it's for a nominal amount of money to where it doesn't even matter? Like, I could understand if it was a couple $100,000 or something like that. But when it's for essentially pennies, how much are you actually allowing that to influence your game?
You would think yes on a scale, but if you're the NFL, if you say, hey, that's fine. Hey, $1,000. Oh wait, it's below $10,000. Great, you're fine. Go ahead. And I think that's where it just gets sticky. Like my biggest thing was because I always think back to a different case with marijuana when Josh Gordon had all the issues, and that's another thing. But in the rules, even if they're saying that it had something to do with just him smoking weed, Josh Gordon, they said, hey, we're going to pay you a lot of money, but you can't do this. If you do that, whether it's legal or not,
Right.
that's our rules to play in our association. So that's where I get conflicted with it. But this is going to be something moving forward for as long as we can stay, or as long as sports are around, because let's face it, betting just brings a whole different element to it. I mean, and it can be when I don't do anything with baseball. I told people that, but fantasy football games in general, you kidding me? I'm locked in for that. Ravens down by 30. Yeah. Plus 1,000 odds or whatever, plus 1,500. I mean, imagine the people last year, the Jaguars, Chargers. You bet on the Jags there. It's a part of it, but a lot of people are in that world now. But it's a fine line.
So I'm not disagreeing with you on the fact that, like, okay, it's the rules. You got to follow the rules, whatever. But the rules have been vague, for one.
Boom.
Two, the rules are the rules that they have right now are stupid. If the way to track these bets is so easy for them to do, it's ridiculous. And like, just going back to my old roots, like I worked in the financial world. I worked for T. Rowe Price. I had to disclose every trade that I made. I had to share all my accounts. They followed everything that I did. I didn't even tell them when I made trades. They just knew because they had access to my accounts. That's how it should be in the NFL. You have an obligation to share your betting accounts. And if you violate some sort of rule, you get some sort of warning, and then like just have that be that. That's how I think it should be ran. If they can track every single bet that you make, then it should be a very simple and easy process.
Yeah. I don't know. It's unfortunately, it's not going to be the end of it. I think this is going to continue to be an issue, but you're right. You look up at every single industry right now in professional sports, sponsored by DraftKings, sponsored by FanDuel. Right. And again, like, all good, but as a player, you're going to have to make the decision. And if the rules stay as they are, if I want to play in the NFL, these are the rules.
Yeah.
And I have to know by it. Whether or not we think it's right or wrong, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. You
want to play for my business, you better buck up and listen to what I have to say. And that's
while I collect the dollars off of it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. You got to play the game. And the thing is, for me, but if someone told me right now, hey, Ryan, I'm going to give you $10 million, but you're not going to bet again while you play, sure, I'll take it right now.
That's a good call.
I can throw it all away. And that was the point I was bringing up with Josh Gordon. If they gave him an extension, and said, Josh, if you could just keep it together, because he had that 1 year with the Browns when the Browns were woof. The Browns were woof for a while, but
they still are.
Yeah, but so he had that ridiculous season.
Yeah.
And then you're right on the cusp of all this. And they said, Josh, we're going to give you $20 million, but you can't smoke for the next 5 years.
Right.
I would throw everything away like that. I would, because that changes your life in that sense. So that's why it's a when people say it's an honor and privilege to play in something, it is. And if you don't like some of the rules, it's not fair, but also you can do something and make money at such a high clip.
I think that's the best point that you've made out of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm full of great points. Just stay tuned on the great points. Do I have great posture? No.
I don't either.
We're working on it. This shirt is pretty tight. But the posture is good. Well, I gotta relax, man. I'm still trying to figure this all out. Moving on.
What's next in the sports world?
Yeah, sports world. Well, I want to stick with the NFL to finish this off, actually. And we talked about Hard Knocks, Jets. Yeah. That's already done. The NFL can force their hand. Looking forward to it. Sorry if you're a Jets fan, though, because if I were them, I don't want the attention.
Right.
Keep it away.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to wrap in, because this is Maryland, and J.K. Dobbins sat out the minicamp. That's the one I really want to talk about in the NFL here for a minute. And there was 2 tweets specifically from J.K. that I think are good to talk about, where he essentially said he loves Baltimore. He loves being a part of the city and the team. But the reality of it, and we're pulled up right there, he's Baltimore. So
say it verbatim.
I'm Baltimore to and through till I'm gone. Baltimore.
There you go.
Baltimore. If you ain't rolling your T's, I guess you're not full Baltimore.
That's right.
See, I didn't roll it there. But point is here. Well, actually, before I give my sense, what's your take with everything with Dobby?
As my initial take as a fan of the Baltimore Ravens is that I'm just exhausted of all the contract drama.
Well,
Right?
you don't want another one like this offseason?
Right. Like it's in, Patrick Queen kind of got into this a little bit too, especially with the drafting of linebackers and whatnot. And some of the tweets that he put out on draft night. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, and at least, I don't know, maybe it is kind of the same. Lamar is a freak of nature. J.K. Dobbins is also a freak of nature, but not to the extent that Lamar is. Like, J.K. is an absolute dog, but he's had injury trouble. And as a business, if I'm the Ravens GM, Eric DaCosta, I have to look at it as a business and the risks involved with paying a player a certain amount of money and getting an ROI on that. And so it's not personal, even though a lot of these players seem to be taking it personal. It's just business. And that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. I'm exhausted. And I also can kind of see it from a front office standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I see it from both ways, especially being done with playing professional sports. I'll tell you, as the player in there, it does bother you, And again, I didn't play in the NFL, obviously, right. But the concept of when you feel like someone's making a decision based off of what they're seeing from you and how they value you, it does feel personal. Like there's no sugarcoating that, and you don't want it to be, but I don't blame. When the front office has to make a decision in their best interest, I don't blame Dobbins for trying to keep himself healthy.
No,
the dude's had a rough couple years.
Right.
Like, just imagine you're finally going to take over the running back room. It felt like you had that big year right before the last preseason game you're to play. Knees taken out, you're done. Then things don't go right. Your knee doesn't feel good. Then you bounce back, but then you had to get it cleaned out again. And then we see that player that everyone thought that they'd see. And then now you're playing a position that's devalued and that people aren't going to be giving out these massive amount of money. Like, I don't care that he sits out, and I don't blame anything. He's just being honest.
Yeah.
He's being honest about his feelings. And as a player, yeah, good. Be honest about it. I don't hold anything against either side for their stance at all. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to do the best thing for each other. And this is where it gets, I think people get caught up with the business side so much, or he hasn't done anything. He doesn't deserve it. Or like, hey, pay the man. No, there's more to it. There is.
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, are we going to get the J.K. Dobbins of the second half of the year? Or are we going to get,
And also, wouldn't you want to have that J.K. Dobbins healthy for the year? So that's
for sure.
So that's where it goes. I love Dobby, though. I'm excited.
Me too.
For him to be, he'll be playing. And I'm pumped about that.
Yeah.
And hopefully this Ravens turmoil, people that followed me too, like, I just never really get caught up in the hoopla, because it's just like, hey, things are going to work out. It's either going to work out in a way that you're happy, going to work out in a way where you might not be happy, but it's going to come to a conclusion at some point.
There's going to be a deal that gets made, and it's kind of like people who were worried about the Lamar Jackson deal not getting made. Like, I never had a doubt that there was going to be some sort of deal that got done, especially after when he had the option to reach out to other teams and there was just no takers like that day. Well, it was just like kind of a no brainer, but I think that they're going to get something done with JK too. They need him.
Yeah, they need, but the reality is, if they don't get some deal done, that's fine too. It's a part of it. And if he plays so well and he earns a big contract, I'm super happy for him. It might not be in Baltimore.
Yep.
And that's his point, but he loves the team. He loves the city. He just seems like a guy. I like him a lot. Would love to just sit down, chat with him. Maybe we will in the future.
How do you feel about players that publicize their contracts and the business that they do?
Oh, days have changed of saying, hey, I'm just happy to be here. And, that will all take care of itself. People have a platform.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like my business being out there. I don't like to try to do that. But again, I've never been in a situation where I was going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars or even getting a big multi-million-dollar contract.
Right.
So I don't know how I'd handle it. But the point of it is, you can manipulate it with any way that you want. And that's goes back kind of the point of it. A team will put up with things as a player as long as they think the value of it makes sense. Right. As soon as that's done, Antonio Brown, perfect example. Hey, we paid you a lot, but as soon as your antics were too much,
right,
I am done with that. See ya.
Yeah.
We ain't touching you. You're good. Well, guess what? You're going to be blasting us on social media. I don't want to deal with that anymore.
Right.
peace.
Yeah.
Deuces.
NBA news.
NBA.
Michael Jordan selling the Hornets. And Michael Jordan, by the way, if you think that investing in real estate is the way to go, maybe you should go check out investing in a professional team. Even if it's the worst team in the league, you're still going to make ridiculous. Michael Jordan more than doubled his investment.
Well, I think it was even more than. I think he had it for 200 and I would say it was in the 200 some millions where he bought the team, and now the team's valuation
$1
is
billion. I think it was $1 billion he bought the team, and he sold it for 2.1. Sold his part of the team for 2.
Tough. You hate to hear it.
Poor Michael Jordan. But how crazy is that? I mean, the worst team in the NBA, you're still like way out on top.
Oh yeah, but I mean, that's just with all the pro teams now. Like the valuations of all professional teams are up. And it's funny. I think he was waiting to see if they were going to get the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
to get the big Frenchman,
right,
to come on over and maybe be a Hornet because he was the surefire number 1.
Yeah,
but the Hornets ended up taking a guy named Brandon Miller, who I don't know if it was the right strategy. To sometimes he's kind of cracking jokes or like making comments about Michael Jordan, not in any bad way, just to kind of subtle. And it's going, is that the best way to get attention or to say, that's my guy? Is it going to be an insult or that's going to bring the best out of it? Time will tell, but Michael's going to be fine. The Hornets, we'll see what happens with their overall future.
This was my take on the draft. Sorry about that. Let me move to the next one. My take on the draft was this. I said, just one day, I just want one of these rookies to say they got drafted by a sorry ass team. And that was after Brandon Miller said that I see the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA Finals next year. I mean, come on, let's just be real. Like, say something along the lines of like, I'm looking forward to rebuilding this team into a championship.
Yeah, or just not even say, yep, we're gonna be in the finals. I love it.
Don't feed me that bullshit.
I'm never gonna say, nope, we're not gonna go and win games. Never gonna say that.
But to get a ring next year,
yeah, exactly. Say, yeah, you know what? I like we're gonna do some special things. Anything but saying you're going to the finals because you might not leave the cellar. But that's
yeah. I mean, I feel like you probably are really good at, and you've probably had a lot of experience in just doing the PC, answers when it comes to that sort of thing, right? Like,
oh yeah,
especially with a struggling team, I'm sure. But to just be like, oh, you know what? We're going to go out and win the championship next year. I know that we're at the bottom of the barrel, but because I'm here, we're going to turn it around.
Yeah, it's
like, come on, man.
Yeah, the PC answers, that's not really fully PC. That's just more calling bull. It's a lot of bull right there. But again, I'd rather someone be positive, I guess, but it just doesn't feel as realistic. I'm all about being realistic.
There's such thing as toxic positivity, and that guy hasn't.
You know what? But he's feeling good. He's a second overall pick in the draft.
He should.
And for the Spurs, another case, talking about the big Frenchman, Victor, trying to get his pronunciation right. Yamba.
Don't ask me.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop there because I've been trying to practice that for the last entire day. It was not good. But anyway, generational player. The Hornets would have loved to have him. He goes to the Spurs. But this whole draft in general is just crazy. And it brings me to leading up to it. The Washington Wizards were the team that actually made the most moves in this. Bradley Beal, he's gone. He's going to Phoenix.
Yep.
You got Kristaps Porzingis. He is now on his way to the Boston Celtics. The Celtics just feel like they got an unbelievable deal for some reason. Yeah, they took on the money, but they got 2 first-round picks out of it. Also, that deal for Bradley Beal, Chris Paul came and was a Wizard. And what happened after a nice time with Chris Paul going to the Wizards? He was then shipped directly out to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole. The Wizards are making moves. I think the funniest thing actually is what you're about to pull up here is that Chris Paul finding out that he was traded, getting on a plane to go on to Good Morning America.
Yeah.
I think that to me,
so
one of the
figure out.
Yeah, here's the clip. Here's a clip. Just take a listen real quick.
I'm driving in this morning and we got the ticker tape thing outside of our building.
What did it say?
And I see this potential blockbuster deal between you and Bradley Beal that may take you from Phoenix to Washington and vice versa. I was surprised. What are your first thoughts on that?
I was surprised too. I found out on the plane yesterday flying here for this. You know, is in this league, anything can happen. So you just figure out what's next.
You literally found out on the plane.
Absolutely.
Wow. What was your first reaction?
Don't push him any further. He's trying to be nice about
Yeah,
it.
he is, right?
Yeah.
So there's the reaction from Chris Paul.
And there's the thing, it's a business, right? And I think that's a part of where people look at it in sports. That is a part of the business.
Yeah.
Where things move quickly and you find out as it goes. I know guys personally that found out they're getting released, getting waived via social media. Being like, well, hey, now, wait a minute. It goes, right. Sorry. It's someone would text and be like, hey, you okay? How you feeling? You're like, well, why wouldn't I be feeling good? And they'd send them the message and you're sitting there going, damn. It's just someone else that's been around the NBA for a long time.
Right.
And it's not that it's saying a respect level, but things happen and people handle things in different ways. And we're going to dive into the sports industry for a long time. But it is very cutthroat. And when they need to make a move, they make it.
Well, and then the ties to media, like they have to be the first ones to get it, right. Like the Ian Rappaports and Adam Schefter's, they have deals with these guys that they have to get the news out before anybody else. And and that's just the game that gets played.
It's the reality of it. But as far as thinking about for the Wizards case, Wizards made a lot of different moves, and the fact of it is the Wizards are in a rebuild. It feels like Washington just hasn't been a contending team, like a true contending team in a while. I like Jordan Poole's game. They had a nice solid draft too. There's some exciting pieces that are coming to Washington, but it's going to take time, and you hope that this one can be the right one. Just because if you think about it, for the DC sports area right now, the Caps had their moment. You don't know if they're going to get back to that full relevancy.
Ovi's going to beat Gretzky's record.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. I need to see that. So you have the Caps, Ovi chasing greatness, see where the team's going to go.
Yeah.
Commanders are, I don't know. I'm not saying any words because I don't have anything.
They're rebuilding.
They're building. They're something. But then the Nationals are in a rebuild right now, and the Wizards. So DC sports in general, there's a lot of questions. And so really it's actually cool. Baltimore actually has the hopping teams right now, the Ravens and Orioles, a lot going on there, which you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Right.
But nonetheless, the Wiz, it should be fun. It's a lot of fun going to games down there. Hockey games are fun as hell too.
Dude, I wouldn't say last, but I just remember I just had like a childhood memory moment.
Yeah.
That I remember going to Bullets games before they became the Wizards. And like George Marathon days, those were fun games.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I wish that they were back here with the Baltimore Bullets for a long time. And the Bullets it would have been great to have to be alive with a team in Baltimore like that. And I mean, people in the area still love them. It's
not the same.
It's not the same for me. Like the times really it was Anton Jameson and Gilbert Arenas, Agent Zero for me of recency. And that was like in the last 15, 20 years. And that was the beginning of LeBron.
Right.
And the Cavs just tormented the Wizards. But anyway, I rest my case. Hopefully we'll see what happens as we keep diving around. I think overall that covers for our general sports for this one. Anyone you want to dive into right now?
No.
We got a lot to do, a lot to continue to figure out. But I think this is something that down the road we'll probably have a lot of clips of this. But audience, we're going to have a little Q&A.
Yeah.
So we'll look back to, you want to lead it off or shall I?
I don't have any right now that I'm seeing. So it looks like IG, you had some questions.
I did. And a lot of them, you want to guess what it was about?
The way that you look, your appearance.
Besides my eyes.
They are beautiful eyes.
Are they?
I'm just going to say.
Look right in the camera there. Whammy.
There you go.
It really was a lot of things relating to the team, the Orioles, which we talked about initially, which I know a lot of people care about and love and hold dear. So I think as we're at this halfway point, a lot of questions have been about what do the Orioles need?
Oh, I have actually.
Go ahead.
Why haven't they called up Colton Cowser?
Ooh, well, reality is Aaron Hicks came and he's become a very, very good piece for this team. And where are you going to put him? Like that was the thing why Jordan Westberg wasn't coming up yet is because the team was playing really well. How much did you want to change? And did you want to make sure it was at a certain point for Cowser? But for Westberg, at least there's struggles between Mateo and Frazier that finally forced the hand. Cowser, the hand's been forced still, but I mean, Hicks, Mullins, Santander, Hayes should be an all-star. He might not be. All those guys are playing at a pretty high level. So where are you going to slot him in?
Right.
So that's where that's part at. And I understand he's great. Just he's going to have to wait. But I will say a guy that might jump him is Heston Kjerstad.
Oh, really?
I do. And just because I think Heston might be able to play different, I'm very bullish. They're both really good players. Heston Kjerstad is still, to me, the best pure hitting left-handed hitter in the minors. By far, you can put this in a quote, put it out there on social.
We'll clip it.
Kjerstad, I think he could be up here in September. I think that's the guy, even though Cowser is ready, I think Kjerstad is the guy that long-term is going to be in Baltimore.
There you have it.
There you have it. Write that down. All right. Other Orioles questions is going to be, what are we going to do with the infield depth involving the team? Well, what are they going to do right now? Westberg, since he's here, he's going to be up here to play. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I always thought, though, between the combination of Mateo, Westberg, and Joey Ortiz, not all three are going to be with the team in the long run. I still think one of them is going to get traded, but I don't think it's going to be Jordan Westberg. Westberg, for me, is here for the long run of it.
Agreed.
I don't know. Is there any move that you think the team needs to make?
Because there's a lot of depth, I don't know where we would pull from to trade, but we have a lot. Obviously, our farm system is incredible. So I think that we have options, but I do think that we need a starter. If we're going to make a push to the World Series this year, we gotta shore up the starting pitching. I think that's the biggest glaring weakness right now.
Yeah, but I think that's the other part of it is where's John Means then come into the equation when he's healthy down the road, and you can't count on him right now. Grayson Rodriguez is going to come back up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But you're right. But then what do you want to give up? Right. And that's the thing is, I think right now at the Orioles, they're trying to evaluate, and it's also a weird market right now. And I'm sure. So my guy Rocco DeSangro with Fox 45, we do the Rip and Rock podcast talking about the Orioles. We'll do more in depth on everything that's been happening on a week-to-week basis. But essentially we're going to find out is who's going to be a seller.
Yeah.
Who actually is going to sell, because there's some teams out there that you think would be sellers, but they're not that far out of the races. And you look at the Centrals, AL and NL. If you're the Tigers, you're 10 games out or 10 games under 500, but you're like 5 games out of the division. That's got to ask yourself, what do you think? Do you think you guys can make a run or not?
Who are the Mets giving up?
Oh, man. Well, they said Cohen came out. We didn't even fully get into Cohen coming in
We
there.
were going to cover it, and I totally forgot until just now.
Yeah, but I mean, that was the thing is Cohen's even talked about it. They're not in the full panic mode or not in the hey, it's over yet, but
right.
We're running out of time.
Right.
That could be a team that could be selling as we get closer. And one of those high pitchers, heard Scherzer would waive his no trade clause. He doesn't have that many years left.
Right.
But what do you want to do for a rental? Because that's what he'd be. And we can even dissect that more.
That's a huge conversation.
Yeah, huge conversation with it. Because we'll check back in on some of the all-star voting that just came out. But in the meantime, this is a fun one. Wings, just wings in general. Yeah. Food. We love food.
Same.
Wings, bone in or boneless?
It's bone in all day long. All day long. There hasn't been a boneless wing. First of all, they're chicken nuggets. It's not a boneless wing. It's a chicken nugget at the end of the day. But there hasn't been a boneless wing that I've had that just doesn't have too much breading.
Okay. Are you a drumstick guy or a like with the wings, right? Because there's
I love all kinds of wings, but I will say that I'm more of a flats guy than a drum guy.
Those where I can think of flats. So I do love the drums more for wings, but I think a good boneless buffalo wing, even if it's a chicken nugget like that,
you can't. I'm like, let us know in the comments. Is a boneless wing a chicken nugget or is it still a wing?
Yeah, is that actually? We don't know, do we?
How is it? Tell me what the difference is between a chicken nugget and a boneless wing, because I don't know.
What's one of the best places you've eaten at then for wings?
Oh, so me and my boys have something we call man meal. It happens every Wednesday night. We go find a restaurant, whatever. So we did that around here, and I don't know, man. There's so many good places. I really can't find a particular favorite one that I like.
Well, I'm kind of there with you. Actually, there was a place in Towson that closed down. Go there all the time with my buddies growing up, just because the boneless buffalo wings. Around here, I was trying to think about actually blanking on the name. There's a place in Carroll County I'd go to play basketball at all the time when I was in middle school, and they'd have the best Old Bay wings, and it's gonna kill me that I can't remember the name of it. So stay tuned on that. I'll come back. But
Yeah, Ampersea has good wings.
ooh, well,
Ampersea was high on the list when we had getting back to the main.
that's in Baltimore, by the way, right in Fells Point area.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering,
Ibar was another one.
oh man. Well, I haven't been to either one for their wings.
Yeah, Ibar and Ampersea.
All right, so we're gonna have to check that out the next time because I'm getting really hungry with that.
I'm already starving.
Other one with a fun one, Wawa or Sheets if you're gonna stop at a gas station.
Sheets.
Yeah, I think I'm Sheets too.
Going Sheets.
I think I got to. Wawa, I feel like I'm
It feels. I don't know.
abandoning it because it feels like it's this mid-Atlantic region, and I
Yeah.
like Wawas, I really do. But there's something about the Sheets that got me through some really long bus trips.
It's those cheap hot dogs that get you.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
I mean, $3 for 2 hot dogs can't be.
Can you beat that price?
No.
No. You can't. You cannot beat that. We already covered my eyes. Oh, Eddie asked about this. Why don't you call your pro coaches or managers coach? Didn't know if you knew that.
Oh,
in
no, I didn't.
professional baseball, you do not call your coaches coach.
Like
Coach-
NFL, like the NFL. Does.
Coach Brad, Coach Ryan, Coach Coach Harbaugh. No, you ain't saying that. You're calling them by their first name or whatever their nickname is. I think maybe it's because it's the differences of college, actually, because in college sports, it's still coach. It's like when you get to the pros here, we're colleagues now. Like, yeah, I'm coaching you, but some of these coaches can be your age, could be younger, could be a little bit older.
True.
But that's when I'm growing up and I'd be in the locker room. And my dad was one of the first things he told me when I was a kid. It was just, hey, by the way, that's not, Mr. Surhoff, BJ Surhoff, or Mr. Anderson, or Mr. Musina, Mike Musina. That's just Mike.
Yeah.
That's BJ. That's Brady. Like, okay. So I started calling people growing up and my friends' parents initially calling them by their first names. And they're like, oh, that's, Mr. And I'm like, and my dad to remind me, like, hey, that's not a normal thing. But yes,
I never knew that.
you just don't do that. Yeah, I never called a coach like that in pro ball. I called coach their wrong name though, because I called a guy or Coach Michael, and it's still called him Mike instead of Michael. He did not like that. I guess there's a big difference, and whammy. But all's good. No worries there. Let's see some other questions down the list, and as we can wrap up and get. So, like the most needed area for improvement and possible targets, I think still waiting. We talked about it's pitching.
Yeah.
Stay there. I got to ask Florida Gator here. Did the University of Florida ever recruit me? I talked to them, but I never got recruited technically by them. Just kind of like an interesting thing. But Florida's nasty. It would have been cool to go down there and play for the Gators.
Yeah.
Are penguins birds or ducks?
Well, aren't ducks birds?
Are they?
I mean, it's a fowl is still a bird, isn't it? I mean, like a
Penguin's got to be a bird.
ostrich is a bird, right?
Yeah, but penguins, they can't fly.
Well, neither can an ostrich.
But peacocks can.
That's a bird.
I'm a peacock captain. You got to let me fly. If you can name that movie, I'd be very impressed. But you can, you can table that. You don't know it. It's okay. It's one of my favorites because I'm gonna use a lot of those quotes. I'm a big movie guy quotes, so my personality comes out here more.
Yeah.
I drop a lot of Wedding Crashers quotes. Grew up watching a lot of Austin Powers. The Whammy is from Anchorman. They got a lot of those too. So for people that know, if I say some comments like that's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah.
You know that one?
It's dodgeball.
There it is.
Yeah.
Boom. A lot of those. Patches O'Houlihan, man. I tell you what a inspiration. A lot of the questions are still going to be around the Orioles. And I think we'll wait another week to just talk more about the team.
And yeah,
Because
we'll evolve into getting more questions from other places, especially being on YouTube. So
yeah. So I think that's kind of it. This is kind of where we thought we'd be on length. And we got to 3, back down to 3 viewers at the moment. Pumped about it.
we got as high as let me see. We got as high as I think 14.
Yeah, there we go. Almost. We thought maybe could get to 20. And look, this is something where as we learn more and more, we're going to get more comfortable, understand what we're doing. And not saying we don't know what we're doing. It's more so about just figuring things out.
100%.
You know, can't go up there and have it all perfect.
It's the first stab at it. Pretty good. Pretty good first stab.
Pretty good first stab. Any other closing remarks here as we get on out of here?
Favorite sports movie.
Ooh, favorite sports movie. You know, The Replacements was one of my favorites as far growing up. Sandlot for baseball.
Yeah.
The Replacements was a movie then with Keanu Reeves where I had more of a feeling, and I honestly like all the Adam Sandlers, Happy Gilmore, and The Waterboy,
But give me one.
You know what? Now I'm probably doing Happy Gilmore. I was obsessed with. I'll go Happy.
All right.
What about you?
For Love of the Game.
Oh my goodness! I did not expect that.
Yeah, For Love of the Game. It's actually like my top 5 movies of all time.
But For Love of the Game, the baseball game,
Yeah.
For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner.
Yes. It has everything. Bro, it's got comedy, it's got drama, it's got romance. You can watch it with your girl and she'll be into it.
She'll be into it.
It's got everything. It's the greatest movie of all time, in my opinion, as far as sports are concerned.
Yeah, it's okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that. You know what? Homework time for me to go rewatch it. I've seen it a few times, but now I really need to get back in there. Okay, For the Love of the Game. Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
That's it.
That was it.
That was my burning question for the night.
Brad's burning Q.
That's
That could
right.
be a new segment. Brad's burning Q. All right, so we'll be back. Our plan is to do this once a week. For those that don't know, is something we didn't cover yet. So next week we'll be back. We could have some more things lined up, some new segments, maybe a possible guest coming on.
That's happening.
So it's happening. If Brad says it's happening, it's happening. I don't make the rules here because I'm not the one with the headset.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We certainly appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind hitting that like button on the way out the door, we would appreciate that as well. And we'll be back next week. We're going to try to figure out a cadence as far as when we'll be live. And so you can make sure that you're blocking out your schedule just for us. And we would appreciate that as well. Other than that, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you sometime next week, hopefully next Thursday. But enjoy your 4th of July too, by the way.
Happy 4th. Enjoy it. Hopefully it's a great time with your friends and family. And my thing, I always like to tell people, it's a great day to have a day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk soon.
Do not pull up here, Paul.
Oh, God, don't do that.